Today is Tuesday and it's going to be all about healthy Tuesday, health food. If there is one trend that again everybody has been going on and on about, it's about gluten-free diet. Busting that myth for us. What's the good, what's the bad, what's the ugly of gluten-free diet is Manjari Chandra with us here in the studio. Thank you, Manjari, for joining us one more time.
Thank you, Sonal.
One thing that everybody is really buzzing about is gluten-free food. Is it meant for everyone, number one?
To start with, there is a disease called celiac disease, and there are patients who require to be tested and to be put on gluten-free diet. So that is something that exists, and a lot of people need to do that. So that is the good part of it. There is a severe amount of problem associated with eating gluten in people who can't digest it properly, and that's known as a celiac disease. People who have antibodies that are formed when they eat gluten, basically. So the good part is that we are able to diagnose and we are able to put people on gluten-free diets.
But only
and give
if you're
them
diagnosed.
Better. Yes.
What about people who are just following the trend because they feel it's healthy for them, it's good for weight loss?
Yeah, so in fact, I was reading a stats, this is the Harvard T-Chan publication yesterday itself. It says that 83% of people who are on gluten-free diets actually are either misdiagnosed or just doing it like a trend, you know. It's a very small percentage who actually need it. So when you go on something which is trendy and you try to adapt a gluten-free diet, just thinking that it will make you better and healthier, there are many pros and cons to it. One of it being that this is a very expensive thing to do, and gluten-free products are expensive, they are very niche, it's difficult to find them all across the place. If you're traveling, it's difficult to do, gives an opportunity for doctors and people like us to make a little bit more, you know, basically put people on gluten-free diets when it's really not required, you know. Another problem is that these gluten-free products themselves sometimes really don't match up to the expectations. You know, they're mostly made from potato starch or rice, which is actually worse than eating the wheat itself.
Okay, so what happens to, so if I'm somebody who's just been following a trend maybe on gluten-free, what is happening to my body if I'm eating gluten-free food?
One, it may help you for some time if you're looking at weight loss, if you're cutting out inflammation, because gluten is a difficult protein to digest. But on a long term, it's not a good idea. As discussed, it's difficult to eat and find the alternatives. Two is that it may lead to some amount of malabsorption. It may also lead to, like the publications say, that it leads to iron and calcium deficiency. It also leads to loss of fiber in your food because you're mostly eating other forms of carbs which are not whole grains, you know. So it can cause less fiber and can cause other digestive discomfort or issues going forward.
So good for you if you are actually diagnosed correctly to be gluten intolerant, and bad for you if you're not and you're just following it as a trend. What is the extreme side? What can happen if you still continue to have it?
If you really have it for a very, very long time, it also builds up your intestinal mucosa and your intestinal lining in a way where you'll not be able to eat that gluten again, you know. And also, I think there's also a change that's you inherit that's also being genetically transferred, you know. So people who are not eating gluten for their entire life may also have a difficulty in having normal children who will be able to eat normal food going forward.
So that's the ugly side of just following the gluten-free trend without a thing. And where should one go to get themselves tested?
So
to ensure that you know you're diagnosed correctly?
So one is the celiac disease test, which is a blood test. Besides that, also there are a lot of food intolerance tests available now. So there are German companies specifically doing in India. Even our own labs like the SRLs and all also do a food intolerance test.
Okay, great. So that's the big takeaway from Healthy Tuesday this morning. Get yourself tested, the correct test. If you're diagnosed well, that's the only way to go forward. If you aren't, then do not go on a gluten-free trend because it's not good for you. Thank you, Manjari, for busting yet another myth for us this morning.